Hey, we're back. 70s Daydreams. And we are doing Pete's Dragon today. This is sort of a cult classic. You said this one was pretty popular in your household growing up, Alder.
Oh yeah, this was definitely one that we watched a whole lot. This was one of the few that me and my sister would agree on to watch, so I feel like it got watched more than another movie. I was definitely the one who like really liked it though, and I think she kind of tolerated it or liked it a little more. Yeah.
So this one is a combination of live action and animation. So we will talk a little bit about the live action parts, but we'll try to give
Really, yeah, focus and hone in on the animation.
I saw this movie for the first time maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. I hadn't heard of it, and it just like showed up when I was like scrolling, and I was quite delighted. And I was also when I saw that Mickey Rooney was in it, I was like, oh, that's a pretty big name. But after doing research, it turned out a lot of the cast was it was a pretty stacked cast. When I first watched it several years ago, I thought it was really sweet and fun and heartfelt, and it was just kind of like a breath of fresh air. And I have no issue with CGI. I like CGI, but it was cool to see a live action animation like mix where it's 2D
Hmm.
and not CGI,
Hmm.
because it just has such a different feel. Mary Poppins is also known for doing that. Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Something about mixing like the flatness with like the live action really kind of mesmerized me. So I'm really happy to be doing this one. Do you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with this film?
Sure. So I believe it was my dad who got us to watch this first, and I remember pretty much always liking it. Like this is one of the ones that was maybe my favorites when I was a kid. I was a little bit surprised to see surprised and not surprised because I feel like this is the kind of movie that I liked that I would like get made fun of for liking
Oh
so much, like
no.
because it is quite a weird movie.
Yeah,
like,
it's
um,
strange.
but it also is very much like for someone who loves the theater, it's very theatrical, and the songs are really big in it. And then Elliot the dragon's very lovable, I think. I mean, this one is one of the ones that like made it into our playtime too. Like my I was talking to my sister, and she would like hide in a log like he did. And one of the my favorite and like special memories about this movie is that every time that my sister and I watched this, we would get apples and we would save them for the part where they were eating apples, and we would eat apples with Pete
Oh.
and Elliot. So that was special for us.
Yeah, this one means a lot to you.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And I was ready to rewatch it and not be like super precious about it. So I'll be like fair and balanced about how what I say about it and all.
We watched this one
We
together
did.
again. Yeah, it's kind of fun doing that because we're used to just watching it separately. Sometimes I like watching things alone so that I'm not influenced by other people, like someone else's reaction or like maybe me thinking that I'm supposed to react a certain way. But I think we're far enough in the process where we can form our own opinions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And then that way it almost gets like what for me it gets watched faster because like if I'm watching it by myself, I'm constantly pausing and taking breaks, and I pause a lot more and write notes and that sort of thing. And I think it's more organic to kind of just watch it together. I'm still taking notes, but not like, the intricate notes maybe that I would take
Yeah.
otherwise. This movie is almost memorized for me though. So like
I
yeah.
remember that you were singing some of the songs as they were
Yeah.
coming on. I hadn't remembered a lot of it when I watched it again with you. So the main story is just that there's Pete. He's this little boy, and he's sort of like he's an orphan that has been purchased by these really mean, gruff bunch of bandits,
The
the
Gogans.
Gogans, and he like runs away from them as he should because they're really evil, and just want to make him work on their farm and do all of their chores for him. I saw this one comment on some video. It said, because this movie came out in 77, as did The Rescuers, and someone was like, "Oh, it was an interesting choice for Disney to release two movies about child slavery in the same year." But yeah, the 70s were very dark. So yeah, so he's basically just like lives in the forest. He's kind of like a feral child in many ways, just kind of like living off the land. He has a dragon who he, loves, and they take care of each other. And it seems like the dragon came and found him because he was in need and he needed a friend and someone to take care of him. It's sort of just like them, their adventures. And then Pete comes across a small town, and he's discovered by a woman who.
Yeah, the people who run the lighthouse, so Nora, and then her dad Lampy.
Yes. And so they take him in, and they don't really believe in the dragon. Well, the dad, who's played by Mickey Rooney, he saw the dragon and he believes that the dragon is real, but no one believes him because he's a drunk.
Oh boy, howdy is he drunk.
And they really play that up. And so yeah, it's just sort of like a lot of Pete's escapades in the city, and a snake oil salesman comes into town and he finds out about the dragon and he tries to
Lop him up, chop him up.
yeah. He tries to like steal the dragon from Pete, and it becomes this kind of tug of war situation.
Yeah, and then there's another subplot with Nora and having like lost her love at sea, and who's going. There are so many plots in this movie, like it's almost hard to just like
I thought it would be
summarize.
Like I thought it'd be easy if I could just like, oh, it's just like him and his dragon, and then they do this and that. I'm like, oh wait, I forgot that part, and then this part, and then that part. It's a very full story, and you leave the film feeling pretty satisfied because all of the odds and ends are taken care of, and a lot has happened. I recently watched the 2016 remake. They simplified the story a great deal. They removed a lot of elements, and it's a good movie still, but it's not a musical.
You said it takes place in the forest too versus the seashore.
The original takes place in Maine, and the remake takes place in the Pacific Northwest. Like the tone is different, and it's still very sweet and everything, but there's not as much to chew on. It's mainly just Pete
finding a family or something. Like
yeah, and then like the dragon being the thing that kind of like gets in the way.
Huh. Interesting.
Not in the way, but like, someone finds out that he has a dragon and wants to hunt the dragon.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's like a little rambling about the plot. Well, I just want to say I really like this movie. I think it's great. So yeah, just get that out of the way. I'm sure you love it as well.
Yeah, I do. I still really like it. I will say that I feel like 2 hours is way too long for this movie. That would be my main criticism, like watching it as an adult, because it was certainly dragon for me on this rewatch. So that was a little joke about dragons.
Yes.
You're supposed to laugh on them. I'm kidding.
Well, it seemed like the movie could have been even longer because we did a lot of research and we're watching little like behind the scenes, and because there were a lot of comedians and kind of like comic actors in this film, they were sort of egging each other on.
Yeah, like doing improv and trying to like outdo the next one type of thing.
They would end up something that's supposed to be like a couple of minutes long ended up being like 20 minutes long, and they're like, okay, we can't add another 20 minutes to this like already epic story. So
on that note, I think it's pretty special that the director like let them do that, like because a lot of times with movies it's like, no, stick to the script, like and so I'm sure a lot of gems came out of that wouldn't otherwise be in the movie. And I think also watching this as an adult, it's quite a funny movie. Like there was a lot of laughs in this movie. Some were like unexpected that I didn't remember like as being that funny when I was a kid. But yeah, I was laughing a lot.
It's a lot of great physical humor.
Oh yeah, slapstick.
Yeah. Everyone really moves their body a lot. So do you want to talk a little bit about the dragon himself and that process?
Yeah, like the animation
process.
yeah, and so like obviously we'll be talking about the yellow screen, which is also called sodium vapor, right?
Yes.
I guess it was a relatively new technique that they were using in this movie, maybe the first time. It was a yellow screen, also called sodium vapor. So it's very similar to a green screen, but they would film Pete without the dragon, or, film the entire cast without the dragon, with this like yellow sodium lit backdrop. And the actor who played Pete was even saying that like one of the hardest things about acting in this movie was how bright the lights were and how they would be like blinding him all the time. And so, in post production, they're able to stitch the animation in. I'm not 100% clear on how that actually works, but
I've watched like the explanations. I still don't even understand how green screen or a lot of those things work.
yeah.
I'm wondering if they did this with Mary Poppins and all the other ones. I'm not sure, but it works really well. Like you don't really see any bleed between like the animation and like the live action. It's pretty seamless.
I was really impressed also with like how they were able to make it look like, for example, when Pete was hugging Elliot, like you could see his face kind of like disappear into like the his belly. Like
Yeah.
there was like a lot of depth to it, like in the interactions, and then the apple in the air with the fire. And
Especially when he like Elliot the dragon is laying down and Pete like runs and climbs up him. It looked so like tactile. It really looked like he was climbing up the dragon, even though it's like this 2D image, which with very like bright colors and everything. And I really liked how they designed Pete. He's very lovable and he's got a lot of fun expressions. He's such a cute dragon.
he
Like,
is, yeah. I had read, I don't know if you saw this, that Ken Anderson, who designed Elliot, spent a lot of time in East Asia in his early life. So he designed Elliot more East Asian, where the dragons are seen as like good, and versus in the West where they're like bad and scary. And I think that actually,
Elliot doesn't talk. He kind of just makes a lot of these like I think there's a word for like that type of, or in like Peanuts, where all the like the
oh,
parents just make those like trumpet noises. I'm sure
yeah.
there's like a special term for that, but
Mhm.
he's really expressive with like all of those little mutterings he does. His facial expressions are really, you feel what he's feeling.
Yeah, especially at the end when he like needs to say goodbye to Elliot, and like before Elliot even walks up to him, it's like you can tell in his face that he's going to have to do something really hard and that he doesn't want to do it, and that he's trying to like act normal and be brave. And I was so blown away by the way that they were able to communicate that like through the animation. Like that was amazing.
Because you're competing with like live actors, like you're competing with people's face, like
Yeah.
because like the human face is can convey so much emotion. So to try to convey that type of emotion, with like a 2D drawing in the same film. So it's like it's one thing to have like a film that's all animation and you're conveying the emotions, but to get the emotion and like expressions of the animated character to be on par with the acting of the live action is
Yeah,
that's
that's a really good point. Yeah.
that makes it even like harder because you're like not purposefully comparing, but you can't help but.
Right. Yeah. You just have access to both at the same time. So you're able to compare like kind of in real time. I'll say like for his vocalizations too, I thought it was really clever how they did the like the Adam's apple kind of coming up and down to like add the
Oh,
visual interest to like the fact that he can't talk. So, well, I guess he can talk, but he doesn't like speak English that like we would understand because Pete understands him.
yep.
So Pete speaks whatever language that Elliot speaks. Bilingual Petey.
So a little bit about the background of the film. It was like based off of this short screenplay, I believe, that was written years prior, and then it kind of like changed a lot. Like like developmental hell is a real thing in like the entertainment industry of like trying to find the right fit and who to direct and all of those things. And I'm pretty sure it like changed pretty drastically from the conception to the final products that we saw. Don Bluth played a big role in this production. He was one of the animators, right?
Yeah, I think he was one of 3 lead animators.
I also kept seeing this one quote repeated that they were working like up to like 100-hour weeks animating, and they asked for overtime. And instead, I think for each hour of overtime they got, they would get paid time off. So they ended up getting something like 6 weeks of paid overtime, which they used to essentially start their own animated production company.
Yeah, impressive.
And Don ended up taking, I think it was like 20% of the Disney team when he eventually left Disney to start making his own films. The Land Before Time is probably the biggest film.
Yeah, maybe The Secret of Nim too. People really like that one. American Tail also, and
He also made a video game, Dragon's
oh
Lair.
yes,
Yeah,
I
so
never did play that, but I know of it.
but yeah, Don Bluth, he's a monster in animation. One of like the few capable rivals to Disney in America or the world, really, because I think it's really important that we don't have monopolies and that we have as many opportunities for different stories to be told as possible.
I have here that I wrote down in the notes that he was the animation director was his role in this one. I actually had no idea that I liked Don Bluth's thing so much, but like Land Before Time is another one of like my all-time favorite kids movies. So like at least 2 of them, he's in. And I really loved American Tail too. I don't think we had that one on VHS, so I didn't get to watch it as much, but I really liked that one.
We also forgot to mention Elliot the dragon can turn invisible, and that's like kind of a big plot point because Elliot is always causing mischief. Okay, so he's such a cute and lovable dragon, but he gets Pete into a lot of trouble. He's pretty mischievous, and so when Pete goes into this new town, Elliot is with him, but he's invisible. And then there's all these like little gags that happen where Elliot is like bumping into things and knocking things over, and everyone blames Pete for doing it because they can't see the dragon, so they think it's Pete doing it. When he turns invisible and when he comes back, there's like this like blue, sparkly, glowy thing that comes, and I think it works really well. And there was also one part where early in the film, like right before they were gonna go into town, where Pete's like, "Oh, you gotta, make yourself invisible. You can't go into town like that." And then Elliot makes certain parts of him go invisible, and just almost like sort of playing around. And so like he'll like make his arms disappear, and then he'll make his like tail invisible, and then just his head. And I think my favorite one where it was like all of him except for his face. That was really cool to watch, and I'm sure that was probably difficult to animate, but I'm sure they had a great time with this because you're getting more into like abstractions and stuff.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier how the story had changed a bunch, and I think that they had an entire version of this story where Elliot was fully imaginary, but they decided that audiences would grow tired of that, and like the fact that like you pay money to go see a movie called Peach Dragon
There's no
and there's no
dragon.
dragon in it, maybe until the very end when they reveal the dragon was real all along type of thing. I did see also that Elliot has a total of 22 minutes of screen time.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I really feel like they filled it in a lot, like around him, and because he was there a lot of the time, but he wasn't actually animated on the screen. Like he was there in the footsteps or like the mischief that he was doing, or just like the way that he was interacting with the environment.
They really did some good pacing with the animation. There was definitely like a period of time where I was like, oh, we haven't seen the dragon in a while, and then he finally comes back, but it never seems like it was excessive. Everything seemed pretty well paced. And then the opening credits, it almost looked like a painted animation where there were these like really painterly images of waves, was it, or like
I think it was the seashore,
the
like in
seashore and the
general. Yeah.
lighthouse. And
Which Rescuers did a similar thing where they kind of started in like an oil painting type of the atmosphere, and then
was it animated in this one,
I don't
or
know if it was animated or if they like had a painting and then were like
panning the
panning at
camera?
different areas. Yeah.
It's still like a artistic representation that's not live action, so I still think that is important to
Hey, how about the font too that they used in the very
Oh
beginning with the
yeah, that was
typeface? It was
great.
like wild.
Yeah.
I wonder how many kids that would like put off the movie immediately though. Cause like, I mean, I know myself as a kid, like we would go to the video store and like when my dad took us, it would be that my sister and I had to agree on a movie and then he would pick out a movie for us. And we were always like, and because like the ones he picked were old. Like, it's like, I like this one too. I was like, it's old. Like, I don't know if I want to watch that. But like really some of the best movies that like from my childhood were ones that he had picked out. And it was very different when we went with my mom and she said, you can each get one. And so we really liked that a lot better where we could each choose one. Cause we often did not agree on the movies that, yeah. So I think that that's also why this one became one that we watched so many times before we got it on VHS, like that it was, one that we could agree on as like our agreed upon movie.
Yes. I mean, and the poster, like the artwork it's really charming and like kind of quaint, like the image of the dragon with Pete and everything. It's a really nice image.
Which image are you referring to?
Just like the movie poster.
Oh, okay. So like the VHS that I remember, it was Elliot pushing Nora and then Pete on a swing. It was like the white background cover of the VHS.
When I initially search it, it's just the apple scene where Pete is throwing the apple.
That definitely wasn't the one that was on my VHS, but I think I've seen that one before. And then I saw there was another movie poster that kind of had like floating heads all around of like the different like actors who are more well known. And that's another thing I think about this one, like with my dad, is that like probably he loved this movie because he loved those comedians and like,
Yeah.
and that this movie was super slapstick and funny. And like, that's why he liked it and wanted us to watch it.
So I just found the VHS image of Elliot pushing Nora and Pete on the swing, and it is adorbs. It is so wonderful. It's so gloriously retro. Speaking of retro, so this movie takes place in the early 1900s, believe. And this is just like one of those things that I always like. I like seeing. Oh, there's another word for this. So retrofuturism, I think, would be like Star Wars, would be like it's imagining the future, but when you watch it, you're like, okay, they're like all the way in the future, but they still have like these 70s shag haircuts and stuff. But then watching like a period piece from an era and then, seeing them, do everything they can to align with the period, but also there's still like some residue of the current era. So that's definitely a thing, because even though this takes place in the early 1900s, like, it's still very much a 70s film. And since it's 77, it's like peak.
One of the things that I remember too about that cover is that like when I was a kid and, obviously this was like, well, not obviously, but this was the time before, cell phones or the internet or any of that stuff. And like, I remember just staring at, the cover of that. Like if I wasn't allowed to watch a movie, I would just stare at the cover and I would be like, okay, this movie makes me feel this way. And I would just like look at the cover of the movie. And I remember looking at that one specifically. And I was like, all right, you can feel the way that this movie makes you feel. And then like, okay, so you're not allowed to watch it. Oh, well, and you just move on. But like, there was a lot of staring that went on in the 90s. So.
Sort of like don't judge a book by its cover. But if you can't read the book and you only have the cover, you kind of like imagine what the story would be. I think the same thing with like album covers. When you would go to like a record store or something and like you look at an album cover and like you just kind of like, I wonder what this sounds like. Like I wonder what like this image, like this cover, like artwork, like what is it saying about what the music is. And I mean, I don't think they had a choice to make it 2D because the technology, 3D had already been starting to be developed by that time, but I'm sure it wasn't at the level that it would have made sense to film it in that way. But there's something about like that flatness contrasted with the live action, or as I often call it, IRL.
Yeah.
There's like animated movies and there's IRL. But it's so much more whimsical. And I know that like watching it now in an era where like technology is so advanced, like it can almost seem simple or like campy or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. It just, I'm not saying it's better. It has a certain quality that is just, I, I don't know. It just makes it really,
It's super unique, I think, it's
yes,
very strange, also like strange in a good way, like whimsically strange, and
right. Because with CGI, usually the intent is to make something that is not real appear like it could exist in the world. So whether that's like Lord of the Rings or any of like the superhero movies, the things that are happening are clearly not real, but the amount of detail that goes into it makes you suspend disbelief and be like, oh well, that that is happening. These explosions or these like monsters or whatever. With the 2D animation, there is suspension of disbelief just because that is what goes into watching a film, obviously. But they're not really trying to truly convince you that, hey, there's a dragon there because like the amount of detail isn't there. So instead of focusing on like the technique of detail, it ends up being more about symbols and like abstraction. Like I guess what I like about it is like the abstraction. Like the great thing about a lot of like 2D, especially like more cartoony looking things, is that it's abstraction, right? Because all the forms are simplified. There's like an abstraction there, so where it's like the nose might just be like one or two lines and you know that that's a nose just because of like the shape of it, even though it's like just like a couple lines. And for me or something, it feels like it speaks to like this almost like cave person, like a ancient part of the brain that like just recognizes like symbols, because your brain is kind of making the leap of being like, okay, I know that's not this thing, but I'm filling in the gaps, and it like makes you have more of an imagination. Whereas if you're just watching something that is completely detailed as if it's reality, you're just like,
you almost forget that it's art at that point. Like
yeah,
you're so like aware that this is art and that it's like symbolic and that it's speaking to like different parts of your brain. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying.
I'm reading some books now about animation, and I wish I had the quote ready, but it was just talking about live action film is about dealing in images and animation is dealing in symbols, because it's not simply the image, it's like the idea of an
What
image.
it represents. Yeah, that's fascinating.
This isn't related to the animation, but I just want to say the music slaps. There was some great tunes. It's Not Easy is probably my favorite, and Helen Reddy, who plays Nora, who is for all intents and purposes the new mom for Pete. First of all, she's a babe.
She totally is. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a
Um
great voice, like speaking voice, singing voice. Like she's so classy. Like
oh,
what a classy lady. Like
I think this was one of her first acting roles. She was a singer,
right, right.
and I think this was her foray into the world of film.
Hmm.
And she's from the land of Oz, the land down under.
Is she?
Yeah, she's
Oh
Australian.
my gosh, I didn't know that. That's kind of funny because she always went like as a kid, she always reminded me of our childhood friend's mother. Her name was Miss Gay, and she was from Texas. So, like in my mind, Nora was from Texas, like in real life.
She was very successful in the US. And Pete, he had a few little acting roles prior to this, but for the most part, he was kind of just sort of like a natural talent. Listen to a podcast with him. He no longer acts anymore, but he was talking about how they had like, I don't know, like 100 kids or something who tried out for this role, and they chose him even though he didn't have like a extensive resume. But I think he was saying that Disney preferred, when they were working with child actors, they wanted someone who is a bit more natural as opposed to someone who is like a
Could hit the mark and
hit the mark
everything.
immediately. It can be more authentic, and you really feel it with Pete because I don't know, his like acting with the dragon and everything, he's so innocent and protective, but also like vulnerable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that at one point the actor who played Pete was also saying that he was one of the few that proved to the director that he could like imagine Elliot there, like that he really thought that like he was there or could imagine him.
That's a huge part of it
Hmm.
because you're acting to like
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Someone reads the lines and then you have to like have this big emotional reaction to, nothing, and then they put it in post.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I saw on IMDb that he had a small role on Little House on the Prairie, and I was like, yeah, I could see that. He has that kind of like energy.
I also saw that they were thinking about it's either Kevin Corcoran or Kevin Cochran, but it was the little boy from Old Yeller, like the little brother, and this would have been a totally different movie
Oh
if that
yeah.
kid was cast. Like he had that very like like kind of thing about him.
Like almost like a young Mickey Rooney.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Maybe they clashed too much.
Yeah, I felt like the innocence, and he's kind of like this feral child because he's been on his own. He doesn't have any parents, and he's fleeing these heathens, and he has this kind of like light to him that just he every time he's on screen, he kind of just like shines. I don't know. He has this like this optimism to him. He's not cocky or anything or like or over prepared. He's just being
Yeah, playing really
playing
like
around.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's really nice.
Yeah. In most of the interviews, he has a lot of very fond memories of that time. And one more thing I want to talk about with the animation was like the shadows that and how they use shadows in the
Yeah.
animation. When Pete and Elliot are like hiding behind all of those lobster traps, there's like a shadow that comes down like from the sun onto Elliot, and like that added a lot of depth. And then they animated the shadows underneath of Elliot while he was like flying around. And then I also wondered about the footprints in the cement, how they did that, like if it was claymation or like what.
So what we're referring to is there's this scene where there's like a freshly paved sidewalk with like wet cement, and Pete is walking next to it, and Elliot is next to him walking, but he's invisible. And so you just see these big dragon footprints show up in the wet cement paint, and it's really funny, but it is sort of like, oh, how did they do it? Because you're only seeing the imprints, so I'm not really sure.
Maybe they just spliced up the film too. I'm not really sure. I also was wondering about how they did it with the point in the schoolhouse where Elliot gets in the schoolhouse and then by going through the wall and there's like an Elliot shaped hole in the wall and then he leaves through the other, kind of like does like the whole Kool-Aid thing where he just goes through the wall.
And it leaves his silhouette.
And I was wondering how they did that as well. And I think that there was an interview where one of the actors said, "Oh, that happened in real life, like in front of us." So,
Yeah, like the kids were actually
uh-huh.
in. They probably just like had it like cut out or whatever. Maybe they had like strings attached that they like pulled at it, but it was pretty fun.
Outside of the animation, is there anything like from the movie that really sticks out to you or that you'd want to talk about? Like any scenes?
I think a really special scene when Elliot is trying to light the wick to the lighthouse so like the flames so that the light can come back, and Nora's love, they thought that he like had perished in a shipwreck, but it turns out that he's alive and he's trying to sail back, but then the light in the lighthouse goes out because there's a big storm. And so then he loses his way trying to sail back. And they're like, we need to relight the lighthouse so that he doesn't run into the rocky banks or whatever. And the only one who can do it is Elliot, because, he's a dragon and he can blow fire, but he's having trouble because he's kind of like caught
Like
in.
jammed up in the staircase and can't like get the full, I guess, breath into his diaphragm to do it.
Then he finally does it. Even though it's like a fun, musical and everything, There's stakes in it, you know. They raise the stakes, and I love that they had that subplot of Nora reuniting with
Long
her
lost
long
love.
lost love. That was really special. I don't know, are there any scenes that really stuck out to you?
I mean, I really loved in the beginning, there was like a scene in the pub where Lampy is where he says he saw a dragon and there's a song and then Nora gets on top of the bar and starts kicking all of the glasses and she's
Yeah.
like doing kind of a line dance kicking them and then all the men take their cups and they put it back on the bar and refill them and then she does it again and then they're like on top of these barrels rolling around and it was just like super fun to watch. I mean, there was so much like alcohol use in this movie and like in the beginning it said like tobacco depictions and there's like one, I think.
Yeah, the mayor.
His wasn't even lit, I don't think. There was smoke in the bar at one point when the men are all on top of each other's shoulders and they're pretending that, oh, I swear I saw a dragon, and one of those guys is smoking a cigarette.
You know, I'm sure like the alcohol industry like has paid off like the film
Yeah.
industry to like not have to.
Yeah, they're the Doc Terminus of the
Yeah, because I mean, it's, you know, just as bad, if not arguably worse, or definitely more dangerous than many other substances. I also wanted to say an interesting scene was when Elliot gets captured, they drop like the big
Yeah.
burlap type sack on top of him in like that shed. It was very, I'm not sure how to explain it. Maybe the word is uncanny
Mm.
because we see Elliot as this 2D,
Yeah.
and then they drop this big sheet over him and you don't see Elliot anymore, but you do see the outline of him because the sheet is over him. So I was like wondering, did they make like a big paper mache thing, or like what did they
Yeah, some
use?
animatronic something.
Because it was moving,
Uh-huh.
and like, and they're all like kind of trying to restrain the dragon, but there was something like, because we go from, okay, like the 2D thing, and then now we don't see him, but we see the shape of him, and it's very much a real shape, like it's like, and so I thought that was very kind of uncanny.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because there was always something strange about that to me, but I couldn't like put my foot on it. And yeah, it's that it goes from 2D to 3D, and there's no like, yeah, he was always 2D before. I wonder how they could have done that any other way. Maybe changed the tarp that falls on him into animated.
But I guess it wouldn't have really made sense, you know,
Right.
because
He's certainly 3D, like when he's like messing things up, like when he's invisible and all of that stuff. But when we see him, he's never 3D except for underneath of that sheet. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up.
the way he's moving in that scene is not as fluid as we remember him to be moving in 2D. So it was a very, very odd. It's great. Y'all should definitely watch Pete's Dragon. I think it's safe to call it a cult classic. I mean, it did well, just as The Rescuers did well. They both did well at the box office, but
I think it didn't do as well as they had hoped, though, because Mary Poppins was such a hit. And then this
yes.
one was like, I mean, it made back its money
Yeah.
and all of that, but it wasn't like a hit where they could like make more movies after it based on like how well it did. And then
Right.
also, this came out like exactly the time that Star Wars came out, I saw too. So I think that maybe messed with the.
And Star Wars was, you know, one of the movies that was really pushing. They used a lot of effects, and like they had like, you know, it's about space, and like it was much more technically detailed. And so to release a film with like a very obviously cartoonish dragon in the same year, it kind of is a interesting contrast.
Well, I mean, even still now, though, it's like the Rotten Tomatoes is kind of low. Like people say, oh, it's boring, it's slow. It's like, yeah, it's like a lesser Disney movie. It's like something, it had not without its charm, but it's a lesser Disney work. And I think that there's that weird aspect of it that like people can't really fully get behind. It also is like very theatrical, and a lot of people are not into that, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I totally still love it, and I loved it then. but I can totally understand also why maybe someone wouldn't. But I think that if you already are listening to this podcast and you are kind of digging the same things that we're digging, you're going to dig it
Yeah, you're
too.
gonna love
So
this.
yeah.
Yeah. I watched this one video essay where this guy was saying how he thinks if this movie was completely animated, it would have done better. I thought that was an interesting take.
Yeah, I did too. And I really couldn't decide how I felt about that either.
I still am really happy with the decisions they made because I think they ended up going with taking a chance and doing something interesting. And so we end up having a really interesting, unique artifact,
Yeah.
work of art.
And it does feel like such a human story to me. And I think that the fact that there's like these actors and that they put so much into these roles, that adds to it for me.
I didn't fully check this, but I think Disney didn't make another musical for like a while after this one because it didn't do as well. So like I'm trying to think what was the next one. Was it The Little Mermaid or but yeah, it is interesting how one movie can make such an impact on a production company. Like there have been plenty of cases of where like one movie will bankrupt a studio or a movie will make a studio that was like struggling.
And so much about it is about momentum too. It's like getting a good one and then building off of that for the next one. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and people start trusting that company to like bring good things. And
It's a shame though. I wish like the industry could work differently because I feel like it's short-sighted to only focus on initial revenue because sometimes you got to think about like something having legs. And this is very relevant with streaming because I feel like shows will get canceled if they don't immediately get the viewership. But here's the thing, like if you have a streamer, I mean, I know this for me, like if there's something that comes out and I know it's on the streamer, I'm not going to be as pressed to immediately watch it because I know it's there.
mm-hmm.
Whereas like before, if something was coming out and you wouldn't be able to see it again, like then there was more of like
urgency around it.
but just because there's not an urgency to want to see something doesn't mean that I don't think it's
Doesn't mean that you're not going to want to play it over and over and over again at the comfort of your home, you know?
And it's just like kind of like a bummer that like a lot of the way the industry and like just the way the economy works is like we need this thing to make a bunch of money out the gate and that's it. And like that's how it has to work. It's just like frustrating for creatives. Like think about all the movies that don't do well domestically but then make a bunch of money abroad.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of movies that make a lot of money, or did at least a considerable amount in rentals and DVD or VHS sales. So I think it's just if we expand our understanding and conception of what success is and can be, then we can start funding more creative projects like Pete's Dragon or things like that instead of being like, no, it has to be a blockbuster hit immediately. And this might sound funny to some people, but think about it this way. Like when you're making something, there's people who aren't even born who might interact with your thing. We don't even think about that. We think, well, the audience is just like whoever I know or whoever is like out there who I want to like this thing, but you never know where an audience can come from. Like it's a big world. And here we are, talking about a movie from 1977.
Right. In the year 2026. And maybe somebody would be listening to this podcast, hopefully, whatever, maybe like in 30 years and be like, oh, wow, what a time, 2026, and then talking about it's just like, it just keeps going and going.
And I just bring it up because like, if they were making this movie, if they're only thinking about like the end game of like the profit, they weren't like thinking like, oh, in like 30, 40 years, like some people are going to be talking about this on a podcast and like how it really impacted them. So,
and like how many people dropped the ball on like Van Gogh who never sold a painting his entire life. And now there's like entire merch things, all like his stuff is sold like ad nauseum everywhere.
Yes.
He's one of the most famous painters. Like it's this tale that's as old as time, where like the artists are like, they see the vision and they have the vision, but like commercially, like there's a whole different story. And yeah, it is a shame that like it doesn't translate to like what the idea of success is maybe for art, which I think could be and is like staying power, like being able to speak to generations of people who aren't even born yet, like you said.
So I just really felt compelled to say that because it seems like a lot of the 70s Disney movies are sort of like slept upon or seen as a bit strange or whatever. But, I still think that they matter. And I'm glad that someone was still kind of like, no, let's try to make something. Let's still try to tell stories. So tell your story, even if you don't think it's like immediately profitable,
Hmm.
because I think if you really do truly tell your story, it will have an impact on someone.
Yeah, for sure. And you can tell lots of stories in one story, like this one too. You can have all these plot points
Yeah.
in one movie. There's always more that you can add.
So, folks, it's not easy, but keep on keeping on.
Hmm.
Keep on trucking. That's Pete's Dragon.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.